to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the top reports. Coming up, anti-migrant violence shakes up Africa's second largest economy. And Somalia's bananas bounce back. First, the headlines. China's move to ease monetary policy failed to boost risk appetite locally, but European stocks took heart from the gesture. The Hang Seng Index closed down 2.02%, while the Shanghai Stock Exchange Composite Index slumped 1.64%. The Stoxx Europe 600 in morning trade was up 0.63%, and the FTSE 100 traded up 0.93%. China's central bank on Sunday cut the amount of cash that banks must hold as reserves by 1 percentage point to increase liquidity and bolster slowing growth. Beijing is widely expected to pursue more easing, including another interest rate cut in May and accelerating spending on infrastructure. As more than a fifth of S&P 500 companies report results this week, the strong dollar is expected to further weigh on earnings. Falling energy prices and a rising dollar have led to the largest downgrade of earnings estimates since the financial crisis. Between late October and mid-March, the dollar climbed 15% against a basket of major currencies. General Electric and Philip Morris each said last week that the firmer greenback reduced their revenues by nearly $1 billion in the first quarter. FactSet expects first quarter earnings for the S&P 500 to be down 10% for companies that generate less than half their sales in the U.S. IMF Chief Christine Lagarde encouraged Greece to bring reforms to fruition as fears of a Grexit and subsequent contagion spread. Lagarde, in the interview with the Financial Times, warned that any honeymoon the Syriza government enjoyed with creditors was rapidly coming to a close. Greece is urged to implement reforms that would unlock €7.2 billion it needs for payments due to the IMF and the ECB this summer. A Greek default in loans could force it to leave the Eurozone, triggering financial chaos in Greece and damaging the integrity of the single currency. Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis said if Greece were to leave the Eurozone, others would be likely to follow. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday launched $46 billion in energy and infrastructure projects in Pakistan. The projects will establish a Pakistan-China economic corridor linking Pakistan's southern Gwadar port and China's western Xinjiang region. The plan, which far exceeds U.S. spending in Pakistan, reflects a shift of economic power in the region from the West to China, a Pakistani official said. Since 2000, the U.S. has given $31 billion to Pakistan, of which two-thirds was earmarked for security. Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi on Sunday led thousands of angry farmers in a protest against a controversial land bill. Congress leader Gandhi accused Prime Minister Narendra Modi of favoring a big business at the expense of struggling farmers. The amended act does not require consent from 80% of the landowners if the purpose is for national security, rural infrastructure, or industrial corridors. Modi said the bill is needed to improve the efficiency of land purchases for factories, industrial purposes, and other development projects.
This government doesn't represent the laborers and farmers or anyone. They just travel around the world, while here the farmers just die.
Anti-migrant violence has soared in South Africa as a growing stream of refugees seeks asylum in Africa's second largest economy. I-24 News journalist Daniel Roth brings us the details.
South Africa has been the site of anti-migrant violence and looting this month, with at least 6 dead and 5,000 displaced from their homes. The violence has spread from Durban to Johannesburg. The targets of the violence are, according to the United Nations, primarily asylum seekers seeking refuge in South Africa, which is Africa's second largest economy behind Nigeria. Despite the comparative economic advantage in South Africa, massive ongoing inequality has left many in hard conditions, with no sense of stability, as leaders call for calm.
When Africa is stable and Africa is at peace, there is chance for prosperity. And we're saying to our people, let's stop doing this. And we're saying to those who are doing it, they must know the law will not play games with them.
South Africa has a population of over 50 million, and estimates put the number of foreign nationals at up to 5 million. Meanwhile, unemployment sits at 25%, while youth unemployment is up around 40%. Xenophobic violence in the tense climate of high unemployment took the lives of more than 60 in 2008 in Johannesburg and 6 this January in Soweto Township.
We as black people are attacking one another. I have never witnessed people attacking whites or any other race. It is only black people attacking one another. It is clear that black people do not want to see one another progressing.
As leaders from Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and elsewhere have condemned the violence, Malawi has repatriated 500 workers, and South Africans are leaving Mozambique for fear of reprisals.
Stock markets were volatile on Monday, driven by Beijing's weakened measures to counter a slowing domestic economy. For a better understanding of where the markets are headed, we're joined now in the studio by JK on FX founder Joel Kruger.
Good to be here.
Mr. Kruger, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So, give us an understanding here. What role does the Bank of China play in the markets?
Well, the Bank of China plays no different role than any other central bank right now. What we have is a world economy that's in desperate need of remedy, that's been struggling for the past several years. And the Bank of China right now has come in to infuse some more liquidity into the market to help prop up sentiment.
Okay, so we're not really seeing a major move around the world based on the fact that China is going to loosen its monetary policy?
Well, I don't think it's anything different than what's going on. The only reason why the world's paying more attention, as they should, is that China is the biggest consumer out there in the world. So if China makes a move and the central bank does something, people are going to pay attention. The other thing that we need to focus on that was a little bit surprising was the PBOC cut the RRR by 1%, 100 basis points, which was a bit of a shock. People might have thought 50 basis points. So that was a bit of a surprise.
What else should we be looking ahead for in this week?
So this week's calendar is relatively light, but if we focus out on data in the U.S., which is where the primary focus has been, U.S. durable goods on Friday is going to be one to watch. And then outside of that, ongoing official speak. And then, of course, we need to pay attention to what's going on in Greece as Greece and its creditors continue to try to figure out a solution so that Greece can stay within the Eurozone and not default on its debt.
Of course, the 24th of April is essentially when they're going to be having those talks, which will give us more clarity in terms of where it's going.
Right. The 24th of April has been a deadline, which is now probably going to be pushed back into May now.
As deadlines tend to be.
As that tends to be the case.
And what is your view on the U.S. and global stocks?
So right now, my view of the U.S. equity market is the same as my view of the global equity market. I think the U.S. equity market will lead, but it continues to be quite bearish over the past couple of months. I think the market's in the process of putting in a top, whether we see one more sort of reaction high, maybe, but I think that as the Fed now starts to move towards a tightening, it's going to have a serious impact on U.S. equities and also on global equities.
Okay, and we have seen the U.S. dollar being sold off a little bit lately. I mean, where is that headed?
So we've seen the dollar.
What's driving it?
Yeah, so we've seen the dollar sell off for three primary reasons over the past couple of weeks and the past several days. One is we've seen some technical selling, so the dollar's had several months of moving higher, and so it's only natural to see the dollar sell off a bit. We've seen U.S. economic data a little bit softer over the past week, so that's also impacting the dollar negatively. And then there's this argument that the market has already priced in Fed rate hikes, and as they price in Fed rate hikes, when the Fed actually goes to hike, it's already exactly. So there's that argument. I don't think that that's going to last, and I think that we'll continue to see the dollar appreciate over the medium term.
Which essentially would be a good news for the world markets, right? I mean, it has the rising dollar has actually had an effect also locally in the U.S. in terms of the earnings reports, but it's also actually weighed on other currencies.
Right. So you can look at it in different ways. I mean, there are those that would argue that the strengthening dollar is a bit of it's a safe haven currency. So if people become a little bit nervous about emerging markets, what's going on in China right now, they might get a little bit jittery, and so you'll see a natural flow back into the dollar. And you would also argue that with the Swiss franc out of the picture as a safe haven, really, and the yen now no longer a safe haven, then a lot of flows go into the dollar. So there is the side of it that you could be a little bit concerned on too much dollar appreciation, that it's sending maybe a bit of a concerned message, at least to risk assets into financial markets. To the real economy, I actually think it's a good thing.
Okay, well, JK on FX founder, Joe Kruger, thanks for joining us on the markets.
Good to be here.
Thank you. After more than 2 decades of conflict that decimated Somalia's economy, the banana industry is bouncing back. And while banana farmers gradually scale up production, less than a third of agricultural land previously used remains active today.
On this plantation in Afgoye, less than an hour's drive outside Mogadishu, workers harvest the fruit of an industry on the bounce: bananas. The heavy bunches are carried to a waiting truck, which will transport them to the capital's port, and from there to destinations far and wide.
Today we're exporting 12 containers of bananas to Iran following a contract we signed with an Iranian company.
After more than 2 decades of conflict that decimated Somalia's economy, the banana industry is once again resurgent. With an improving security situation in the country, banana farmers are steadily scaling up production for both domestic and foreign buyers. Although the Growers Association estimates that less than a third of the 5,000 hectares previously in use remain active today.
The Ministry of Agriculture has helped one of the export companies that has managed to export bananas for the first time in 25 years.
Part of the industry's draw is the easy access to seaports from farms and the close proximity to Middle Eastern markets. And of course, it's also about taste. Since Italian colonists first brought bananas to Somalia in the 1920s, the fruit has become a major staple of the country's cuisine, often paired with rice or pasta. But in this Mogadishu market, sellers complain that the push to export bananas abroad is causing local prices to rise.
Bananas used to be very cheap, but the price has now doubled. People don't like the increase in price, and you cannot persuade them to pay more. The export of bananas is causing us problems.
Other challenges remain too, like rebuilding irrigation systems, roads and storage facilities, and ongoing security concerns. Still, many are betting that the time is ripe for Somalia to regain its crown as the leading East African banana exporter.
And from Somalia's bananas, we go now to other newsworthy items in our Offbeat Corner in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. Daniel.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay.
Yeah? So, bananas?
I'm doing wonderfully. Sorry.
You're not going bananas.
I'm not going bananas. Actually, we're jumping into milk from bananas. Yes. The Economist had this really interesting piece that kind of looks how if you come from a place that has a predominance of people who can digest milk, you may have found yourself with a better economy. It's interesting sort of historical economic look. Basically, if your population digested milk, it meant that this was cows were economic.
A great commodity, obviously, because you could get leather from them, and you can get buttons, I guess, from the bones and whatever else,
I mean, there's all these things that everyone does with, or most cultures do with cows. But in this case, you would add milk to the table. And adding milk to the table would do all sorts of things. It would make cows more efficient item. It would mean that nursing periods would be less, which meant that mothers were able to have more kids, which meant that population density went up, in many cases in places like Western Europe, by 40%. So this is all to say that this Economist piece is saying it's perhaps milk is the reason that Europe's economy advanced so far, and that when we look at the most developed or richest nations, they're milk-drinking nations.
It wasn't imperialism? It wasn't Europeans going out and stealing stuff?
Well, it was also this. It was this is talking primarily about pre-colonial environments, pre-colonial societies. Right. This got them to the point with population density, with technology, and with advanced economies, where they were then able to go out and conquer, colonize, and take, which essentially added a next step to milk being the base, colonialism being the...
My stomach is turning from this story.
Yes, well...
Let's move on to the next.
The next piece comes from the Columbia Journalism Review.
Yes.
This is looking at Facebook. Facebook, which is already a two-tiered advertising system. You can pay to play. You can pay to play. Yes,
you heard it here first.
Well, not really, actually, but the Columbia Journalism Review. But basically, this piece is talking about how dangerous it is that the New York Times and others are thinking about publishing directly to Facebook. The kind of power that puts in Facebook's hand, essentially making it a cable company, newspaper distributor, and social network all in one. They have the power to decide what gets published, what goes out to the world, what we see. As soon as this happens, they already have that power with 1.4 billion people.
Zuckerberg is taking over the world, basically.
Basically.
Thank you very much for joining us.
In brief.
Indeed. So that concludes our Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at iPhone for News. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares. Thanks for watching and join us again tomorrow.